I'm just pulling some of my rotted compost out of my compost pile that has been building up through the late winter and the spring. I'm just pushing aside all of the unrotted debris and going down into a compost pile, which is really rich in worms and unfortunately a fair number of sticks, but that's okay. That's not going to hurt my vegetables. So I'm packing this up and I'm going to take it out to the vegetable garden and put it near my squash. So now I'm out here near the squash laying out my compost. You can see it dark there against the more clay colored soil. And I got one more bucket to lay out. You see that this is just filled with some nice squiggly worms. These will hopefully, on top of the compost, the worms will hopefully make the soil even more fertile out here. So I'm just going to finish this up and then pick some of my squash. So I'm hoping that this compost will actually help a little bit here, because these squash plants have grown a little smaller than I really thought they would grow. Now admittedly I haven't been doing irrigation this year, so it's just really rainfall, but still a little bit smaller. And then the productivity has been on the small side. Granted, it's still probably a little early in the season, but let's see if the compost makes a difference. We are going to pick a little bit of squash today. We have this, what I thought was going to be a red Japanese squash, but has turned out to be not even a flying saucer squash, but a yellow squash with white lines on it. And I think I'm going to pick that one today while it's succulent, before it gets tough. This zucchini that I saw last week has tripled in size. I'm going to have to pick that one today because it's already getting kind of big. And we have a few crookneck squash down here. Some early, very early, others probably by next weekend will be ready for picking. So the plants are producing, just not as much as I'd hoped, and let's just hope that the compost that I put in makes a difference. Okay, so some of the other work I want to do today out here on the Prairie Orchard in our vegetable garden is to tackle some of our permaculture plantings here. We got some kale back there. We'll probably harvest some of that. I'm surprised it's still going, but I think the rains through the spring and summer have really helped it along. We got these potatoes, which are withering, and we're gonna see if we got a crop at the base of those potato plants. We might as well harvest the whole thing. Here we got all kinds of Queen Anne's lace and other grasses growing in with it. We got the onions to follow up on here. You may notice there's some Queen Anne's lace back there, but these are actually onion flowers. And at the base, I want to see if we got some bulb onions to pull up for our kitchen. I have to admit, last year in this permaculture planting of, looks like blackberry, Queen Anne's lace, milkweed, the onions that we pulled did not flower, so I'm wondering if flowering is going to make a difference for these onions. I haven't read about it, don't know. And then towards the end of the chores today, I'm going to get into these blackberries. I think many of them are ready for picking. The kids are going to love these. So time to get to work. Okay, I'm working on the kale right now, and while we have some viable leaves here, actually behind it you can see how the snails or slugs have actually devastated the majority of the kale plants. So we'll just pick these, and maybe I'll trim back the bad leaves here and hope that some fresh leaves grow back in. You can see there's some individual leaves that actually are growing well amongst that chaos. We got a little bit of Swiss chard here as well, down here in the shade. Some of it looks pretty succulent. I'll probably take a few of these as well. Here I cut out some of the eaten older kale. I uncovered some younger kale underneath. I decided in the end not to take all the eaten kale out, just because that'll mean the snails will go after the younger, target the younger sprouts. But these are pretty hardy plants. They can tolerate quite a bit. Unfortunately, I have lots of snails, and because I'm doing permaculture, there's no easy way to control them. But I nonetheless picked some kale and some Swiss chard for a little bit of a snack. Let me just say that the onions were disappointing this year. In fact, I'm not even going to bother going through this patch here looking for the onions. I pulled up a few, and we've got little tiny bulbs down at the bottom. I'm thinking that basically, and I'm learning the hard way here, that onions really shouldn't be flowering if you want to get some fruit from them. That is the bulb to grow. And I'll have to read about what it is I did this past year that set these onions to set them up to actually flower. So disappointing on the onion crop this year. These blackberries are still ripening, but there's a fair number that are ready to come off the plant, and they're tasting delicious. Beautiful. So this is our morning harvest on July 25th, 2015 here at the Prairie Orchard. We got our in-ground potato harvest here. We pulled all of our potatoes that were in ground today, purple, gold, and red. And it wasn't the biggest crop, but those look pretty good. And remember, they're no spray, no insecticides, organic potatoes, which I think are going to be really tasty. We got the early part of our squash harvest here with a pretty sizable zucchini, a little bit bigger than I wanted it to get. And then this round yellow squash with white stripes that I picked on the younger side to keep it succulent. Some kale and some Swiss chard, just a small amount. The snails got a lot of it. And then we got our scrumptious blackberries. So not so bad for our little permacultural experiment, and just a couple hours out in the garden in the morning. Take care, and thanks for watching.